It was the week before Christmas in 2024, and I was already dreading the annual family gathering at my parents' house in the suburbs of Chicago. You know how it goes. Holidays are supposed to be this magical time of joy, laughter, and bonding, but in my family, it's more like a pressure cooker waiting to explode. My name's Alex, and I'm the middle child in a clan that's equal parts loving and utterly chaotic. There's my dad, Robert, a retired engineer, who's obsessed with fixing things that aren't broken, always tinkering in the garage with his latest invention. Mom, Linda, is the eternal optimist, the one who insists on matching sweaters and caroling, even though none of us can carry a tune. Then there's my older sister, Emily, a high-powered lawyer from New York who's perpetually glued to her phone, barking orders at assistants while pretending to be present. My younger brother, Jake, is the wild card, a 22-year-old aspiring musician who's still living in the basement, dreaming of his big break while surviving on ramen and energy drinks. And me? I'm the peacemaker, the graphic designer who works from home, trying to keep everyone from killing each other. This year felt different, though. We'd all been through a rough patch. Dad had a minor heart scare in the spring, which made Mom hover over him like a helicopter parent. Emily's divorce from her cheating ex-husband was finalized just a month ago, leaving her bitter and snippy. Jake had dropped out of community college for the third time, claiming he needed to focus on his art. And I'd just broken up with my girlfriend of 2 years, Sarah, after she decided she wanted to find herself in Bali. So yeah, the holiday vibes were more survival mode than festive cheer. But Mom had insisted, this year we're making memories, no excuses. She'd sent out a group text with a detailed itinerary, complete with emoji hearts and snowflakes. Airport pickups, cookie baking, tree trimming, the works. I flew in from Seattle on the 20th, battling holiday crowds at the airport. The flight was delayed twice due to a snowstorm brewing over the Midwest, and by the time I landed at O'Hare, I was exhausted, cranky, and lugging a suitcase full of hastily wrapped gifts. Dad picked me up in his old Ford pickup, the one with the bumper sticker that says, "Engineers do it with precision." He greeted me with a bear hug and immediately launched into a monologue about his new solar-powered Christmas light setup. "Alex, you're going to love this. I rigged the whole roof with LEDs that sync to music. It's like a light show at the Bellagio, but better because I built it myself." We drove through the slushy streets, the city lights twinkling against the gray sky. Chicago in winter is a mix of beauty and brutality, the wind whipping off Lake Michigan, people bundled up like Arctic explorers. As we pulled into the driveway of the old Victorian house where I grew up, I could already smell Mom's famous cinnamon rolls baking. The place was decked, wreaths on every door, icicle lights dangling from the eaves, and a massive inflatable Santa waving from the lawn. It looked like a Hallmark movie set, but I knew the behind-the-scenes drama was more like a reality TV show. Mom flung open the door before we even parked, her apron dusted with flour. "Alex, my baby boy!" She enveloped me in a hug that smelled of vanilla and home. Come in, come in. Emily's flight got in early, and Jake's, well, he's here somewhere." Inside, the house was warm and inviting, with the fireplace crackling and the tree half decorated in the living room. Emily was perched on the couch, typing furiously on her laptop, her designer boots kicked off beside her. She looked up with a tight smile. "Hey, bro, long time no see. You look tired." "Thanks, Em. You look stressed," I shot back, but with a grin to soften it. We had that sibling banter, sharp but affectionate. Jake emerged from the basement stairs, his hair a mess, wearing a band tee from some indie group I'd never heard of. "Dude, what's up?" He fist-bumped me and immediately asked if I'd brought any weed from Seattle. I rolled my eyes. Typical Jake. We settled into the evening routine. Mom bustled around the kitchen, preparing a massive lasagna for dinner, while Dad showed me his garage workshop. He'd built a custom sled for the backyard hill, complete with LED underglow. "For the grandkids someday," he said wistfully, even though none of us had kids yet. Emily joined us for a bit, complaining about her caseload, but she softened when Mom called us to the table. Dinner was the usual affair. Stories from the year, laughter over old photos, and subtle digs at each other's life choices.
"Alex, when are you going to settle down?" Mom asked, passing the garlic bread. "Sarah was such a nice girl." I sighed. "Mom, it's complicated. Let's not go there tonight." Emily jumped in to deflect, sharing a horror story from her divorce proceedings, which had everyone chuckling uncomfortably. Jake, ever the comic relief, demonstrated his latest guitar riff on an air guitar, nearly knocking over the wine glasses. It was chaotic, but it felt good, like we were piecing ourselves back together. The next day, the 21st, was dedicated to holiday prep. Mom had a list: grocery shopping for the big Christmas Eve feast, picking up last-minute gifts, and decorating the rest of the house. I volunteered to go to the store with Jake, figuring it would be a quick errand. Big mistake. The supermarket was a madhouse, carts colliding, kids screaming, and shelves stripped bare of essentials like turkey and eggnog. Jake, being Jake, turned it into an adventure. "Bro, let's race to see who can find the cranberries first." He darted off, leaving me with the cart. I wandered the aisles, grabbing stuffing mix and pies, when I bumped into an old high school friend, Megan. We chatted awkwardly about life. She was married with twins now. And Jake reappeared with an armful of junk food. Found him, and some energy drinks for stamina. Back home, Emily was helping Mom with the cookies. Or rather, Emily was micromanaging while Mom tried to follow her improved recipe from some TikTok influencer. "No, Mom, you need to use almond flour for gluten-free options. What if someone has allergies?" Emily insisted. Mom just smiled patiently. "Honey, we've been using the same recipe for 30 years. It's fine." Dad was outside stringing more lights, muttering about extension cords. "You know, son, family is everything, even when they're driving you nuts." I nodded, thinking about how true that was. As the afternoon wore on, tension started simmering. Jake blasted his music from the basement, shaking the walls, while Emily yelled down for him to turn it off because she was on a work call. Mom mediated, as always, suggesting we all take a break for hot cocoa. We gathered in the kitchen, mugs in hand, and for a moment it was perfect. Snow flurries danced out the window, the radio played soft carols, and we shared stories from childhood holidays. Remember the time Dad's turkey caught fire? Or when Emily dressed as an elf and tripped over the dog? Laughter filled the room, easing the undercurrents of stress. But then the phone rang. It was Aunt Carol, Mom's sister, calling to confirm she'd be joining us with her new boyfriend, Frank, and his 2 teenage kids. Mom's face lit up. "Wonderful, the more the merrier." I exchanged glances with Emily. Aunt Carol was notorious for drama. Last year, she'd shown up unannounced with a vegan feast, insisting we all convert. Frank was a mystery. We'd only heard he was a retired entrepreneur, which probably meant unemployed. The kids, Tyler and Mia, were 16 and 14, glued to their phones and full of teenage attitude. Suddenly, our cozy gathering was expanding. That evening, we decorated the tree. Boxes of ornaments came out, fragile glass balls from Grandma, handmade ones from our school days. Jake hung his favorites, like the rock star Santa he'd made in art class. Emily placed hers meticulously, color coordinating everything. Dad and I strung the lights, his solar setup flickering to life with a playlist of classics. Mom directed from the sidelines, her eyes misty. "This is what it's all about," she said. We posed for a family photo, all smiles, but I could feel the cracks. Emily checked her watch every 5 minutes. Jake snuck glances at his phone for band updates, and I wondered if Sarah was having a better holiday in Bali. Christmas Eve dawned with promise and peril. The plan was church service, then the big feast, but overnight the snowstorm intensified, dumping a foot of powder. Power flickered but held. Mom was up at dawn, prepping the turkey. I helped peel potatoes, listening to her hum carols. Emily joined, surprisingly cheerful, sharing coffee. Jake stumbled up late, hungover from hanging with the cousins. Aunt Carol announced she'd lead a yoga session for holiday zen. We all participated reluctantly, downward dogs in the living room, with Frank grunting and the kids giggling. Post-yoga, things escalated. Dad tinkered with the lights again, causing a brief outage. "Just testing," he yelled as we reset breakers. Then, while basting the turkey, Mom slipped on a wet spot, twisting her ankle. "I'm fine," she insisted, but we made her sit with ice. Emily took over cooking, barking orders like a drill sergeant. Alex chopped the onions finer. Jake set the table properly. Aunt Carol suggested herbal remedies, which Mom politely declined. Frank offered to grill steaks as backup, but the grill was buried in snow. As afternoon turned into evening, the house smelled amazing. Roast turkey, pies, baking. We dressed up for church, piling into 2 cars. The service was beautiful. Candles, hymns, the works. Back home, we gathered for dinner. The table was set with china, candles lit, wine poured. Mom toasted, "To family, through thick and thin." We dug in, compliments flowing. For a moment, it was idyllic. Stories shared, laughter genuine. Even the teens perked up with dessert. But then the power went out, completely. The storm had knocked it down. Darkness enveloped us, candles our only light. Dad jumped up. "I'll check."
As we cleaned up by candlelight, Dad's generator sputtered. He tinkered, but it died, plunging us back into dark. Phones died too, no charging. We huddled by the fireplace, sharing blankets. Stories turned to complaints. Emily vented about her ex, Jake about his failed auditions, me about Sarah. Aunt Carol shared her own divorce tales, Frank his business failures. The kids opened up about school stress. Mom, ankle-propped, listened, her optimism unwavering. This is real family, messy but together. The night wore on, power still out. We sang carols off-key, roasted marshmallows in the fire. It wasn't the disaster yet, that came later, but the foundation was laid. Bonds tested, secrets spilled in the glow of embers. Christmas morning broke with sunlight on snow, power restored overnight. Gifts under the tree, coffee brewing, but the real gift was the night before. Raw, honest connection amid chaos. Or so I thought. Little did I know, the biggest blow-up was brewing. Wait, no, that's jumping ahead. Let's back up to the eve's aftermath. After the power failed for good, we decided to make the best of it. Dad hauled out his old camping lantern and we played charades by its light. Tyler acted out Exploding Volcano, which had us all in stitches when Mia guessed Dad's cooking. Frank took it in stride, sharing stories from his army days. Aunt Carol led a meditation, surprisingly effective in calming the nerves. Emily, usually so composed, admitted she was lonely post-divorce. "I thought success would fix everything," she said softly. I hugged her, feeling the weight of our shared pains. Jake pulled out his guitar, acoustic this time, and strummed soft tunes. The kids requested pop songs, and soon we had a sing-along. Mom's ankle throbbed, but she beamed. "This reminds me of when you kids were little, power out from a storm." We reminisced, pulling out photo albums, baby pictures, awkward teen phases, laughter echoed. As midnight approached, we exchanged early gifts, small things like socks and chocolates. The turkey, half-eaten, was salvaged cold. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Sleep came in makeshift beds, couches, air mattresses. I dozed off thinking maybe this holiday wasn't a total loss. Morning light filtered through frosted windows. Power hummed back. Hallelujah! Mom hobbled to the kitchen, starting breakfast. Pancakes, bacon, the smells woke everyone. Gifts were opened with glee. Emily got a spa voucher from me, Jake a new amp from Dad. The kids scored gift cards, Aunt Carol essential oils, hugs all around. But then, during cleanup, Jake found something in the basement mess, an old letter from Grandma to Mom, hinting at family secrets. "What's this about Dad's other life?" Jake asked innocently. The room froze. Mom's face paled. "That's private, Jake." Emily snatched it, reading quickly. "Mom, is this true? Dad had an affair?" Chaos erupted. Dad denied it vehemently. "That was years ago, before you kids. We worked through it." Aunt Carol, ever the stirrer, added, "I knew about it, Linda. You should have told them." Frank tried to mediate, but Emily exploded. "How could you keep this from us?" I stood stunned, piecing memories. Arguments I'd overheard as a kid suddenly made sense. Tears flowed, accusations flew. Jake stormed out to the backyard, Emily to her room. Mom sobbed, Dad looked defeated. The teens watched wide-eyed, Mia whispering, "This is better than TV." I tried to calm everyone, but it was futile. The holiday spirit shattered like a dropped ornament. Hours passed in tense silence. Eventually, apologies came.
Dad explained. The affair was brief. Therapy followed. Marriage stronger now. Mom admitted hiding it to protect us. Emily softened, hugging them. Jake returned, sheepish. We talked it out, raw and real. By evening, peace returned. Dinner was leftovers, but the conversation was deep. Forgiveness, growth. The disaster bonded us closer than any perfect holiday could. Looking back, that crazy family holiday was the best, worst one ever. Lessons learned, love reaffirmed.
The snow was falling lightly outside the window of my Seattle apartment as I packed my suitcase for the flight back to Chicago. It was December 20, 2024, and the holiday season was in full swing everywhere, except in my heart. I'd just gone through a brutal breakup with Sarah, my girlfriend of 2 years, who had decided that finding herself meant backpacking through Southeast Asia without me. Our last conversation replayed in my mind like a bad loop. "Alex, it's not you, it's me. I need space, literal space, like oceans apart." Yeah, right. I tossed in a few wrapped gifts, a scarf for Mom, a toolkit for Dad, some vinyl records for Jake, and a fancy planner for Emily, hoping they would distract from the emptiness I felt. Holidays with family were supposed to fill that void, but in my clan, they often amplified it. My family is a colorful bunch, to put it mildly. Dad, Robert, is 68, a retired mechanical engineer who spent 40 years at a factory designing parts for cars. He's the kind of guy who can fix anything with duct tape and a prayer, but his real passion is inventing gadgets in the garage. Last year, he built a robotic vacuum that doubled as a pet feeder until it scared the neighbor's cat into the tree. Mom, Linda, is 65, a former school teacher who's now the queen of volunteer work at the local library and church. She's the glue that holds us together, always with a smile and a batch of homemade cookies, even when things are falling apart. Emily, my older sister, at 35, is a corporate lawyer in New York, sharp as a tack and twice as pointy. She's all about efficiency, schedules, and winning arguments, which makes family dinners feel like courtrooms sometimes. Then there's Jake, the baby, at 22, still figuring out life from the basement bedroom. He's a talented guitarist, but lacks direction. His band, Echo Void, has played exactly 3 gigs, all at local dives where the crowd was mostly friends. Me? I'm Alex, 32. A freelance graphic designer who works remotely, creating logos and websites for startups. I love the freedom, but it means I'm often the one who can drop everything to fly home for crises. This year, there had been a few. Dad's heart scare in April, where he collapsed during a jog and needed a stent. Mom called me in tears, and I was on the next flight. Emily's divorce from Mark, her sleazy ex who cheated with his secretary. Cliché, I know. She handled it like a pro in court, but cried on my shoulder during late-night calls. Jake's latest dropout from college, claiming music theory classes were stifling his creativity. And my breakup, just the cherry on top of a crappy year. Mom's group text from a week ago had sealed the deal. Family Christmas at home, no excuses, flights booked, itinerary attached, let's make memories. Attached was a PDF with color-coded schedules, airport pickups, baking days, game nights, the whole shebang. I sighed as I zipped my bag, grabbed my coat, and headed to SeaTac Airport. The place was a zoo, lines snaking everywhere, kids in Santa hats, harried parents juggling luggage. My flight was delayed an hour due to de-icing, then another for mechanical issues. By the time we boarded, I was nursing a headache and an overpriced airport coffee. The plane ride was turbulent, matching my mood. I tried to watch a movie, but ended up staring out at the clouds, thinking about past holidays. As kids, Christmas was magic, waking at dawn to stockings stuffed with candy, Dad dressed as Santa, terrible beard, Mom's pancakes with whipped cream smiles. But as we grew, cracks showed. The year Emily left for college, she argued with Dad over politics. Jake's teen rebellion involved sneaking out for parties. My own awkward phase included a disastrous attempt to impress a crush with a homemade gift that fell apart. Still, we always came together around the tree. Landing at O'Hare felt like coming home and entering a war zone simultaneously.
The terminal was packed, holiday music blaring, and the cold hit like a slap when I stepped outside. Dad was waiting in his beat-up Ford F-150, engine running to keep warm. He waved enthusiastically, his gray hair peeking from under a wool cap. "Alex, over here, son!" I wheeled my suitcase through the slush, dodging taxis, and climbed in. The truck smelled of oil and pine air freshener. Classic Dad. "Great to see you, kid. How was the flight? Any turbulence?" I nodded. "Yeah, but nothing compared to family dinner." He laughed, a deep rumble. "You got that right. Mom's been baking non-stop. Cinnamon rolls, pies, you name it." As we merged onto the highway, he launched into his latest project. "I've got this new setup for the Christmas lights, solar-powered with Bluetooth sync to music. Imagine the roof pulsing to jingle bells. I wired it myself, saved a bundle." The drive took 45 minutes through traffic, the city skyline giving way to suburban neighborhoods twinkling with decorations. Chicago winters are brutal, the wind chill, the gray skies, but there's a coziness in the lit-up houses. We pulled into the driveway of our old Victorian on Elm Street, the one with the wraparound porch and creaky stairs. It was built in 1890, full of character and drafts. Mom had gone all out, multicolored lights outlining every window, a wreath on the door with bells that jingled, and a giant inflatable snowman in the yard, its fan whirring softly. Before I could grab my bag, the front door flew open. Mom stood there in her festive apron, flour on her cheeks, arms wide. "Alex, my sweet boy, get in here!" She hugged me tight, her warmth chasing away the cold. "You look thin. Have you been eating? Come, I've got soup on the stove." Inside, the house was a winter wonderland. The living room had a 10-foot fir tree, half adorned with lights and tinsel. The fireplace mantel held stockings embroidered with our names, and the air smelled of pine, cinnamon, and something savory simmering. Emily was on the couch, legs crossed, typing on her laptop. She looked up, her dark hair in a sleek bob, makeup impeccable even after a flight. "Hey, little bro, survived the skies?" She stood for a quick hug, her perfume sharp and professional. "You smell like airport," she teased. I smirked. "And you look like you're about to cross-examine Santa." Jake bounded up from the basement stairs, his lanky frame in baggy jeans and a hoodie. His hair was longer now, dyed blue at the tips. "Dude, what's good?" He pulled me into a bro hug, slapping my back. "Brought any West Coast vibes, like legal stuff?" "Jake," Mom scolded from the kitchen, "not in this house." He winked at me as we all laughed. We settled in the living room, Mom bringing trays of appetizers, cheese cubes, crackers, and her famous spinach dip. Dad cracked open beers for us guys, wine for the ladies. "To family," he toasted, clinking bottles. Conversation flowed. Emily updated us on her big case, a corporate merger gone wrong. The opposing counsel is a shark, but I've got him cornered. Jake talked about his band. "We got a gig lined up in January, real venue, not a garage." I shared about a recent client project, designing a logo for a tech startup. Mom beamed. "I'm so proud of you all." Dinner was Mom's lasagna, layers of pasta, meat sauce, and cheese baked to perfection, with garlic bread and salad. We ate at the dining table, candles flickering, holiday playlist on low. It was the kind of meal that warms you from the inside. But subtle tensions emerged. Mom asked about Sarah. "Any chance you'll patch things up?" I shook my head. "Nah, she's in Bali now. It's over." Emily jumped in. "Good riddance. You deserve better." Jake, mouthful, added, "Yeah, bro, plenty of fish." Dad steered to safer topics, like the Bears season, disappointing as usual. After dinner, we helped clean up. Emily loaded the dishwasher with military precision, Jake dried plates haphazardly, and I wiped counters. Mom and Dad retired early, Dad to tinker, Mom to read. Us siblings hung out in the basement, Jake's domain. It was a man cave mess, posters of rock bands, guitar amps, a futon couch, and laundry piles. We watched an old holiday movie, Home Alone, laughing at the traps. Emily opened up about her divorce. "Mark was a jerk, but it hurts, you know, being alone at 35. I nodded.
I get it. Sarah said I was too settled, whatever that means. Jake strummed his guitar softly. Love sucks. Stick to music. We talked late into the night, bonding over shared pains. It felt good, like old times. But as I crashed on the guest room bed, I wondered if the peace would last.
The next morning, December 21st, I woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. Mom was in the kitchen, flipping pancakes, her radio playing carols. "Good morning, sleepyhead. Big day ahead." The itinerary called for grocery shopping, gift wrapping, and decorating. Dad was already outside, ladder against the house, adding more lights. "Morning, son. Hand me that extension cord." I helped, the cold air crisp, snow crunching underfoot. The neighborhood was alive with kids building snowmen, dogs barking. Jake and I headed to the supermarket in Dad's truck. The parking lot was packed, carts abandoned everywhere. Inside, it was pandemonium, aisles jammed, speakers blaring deals, kids tantruming over toys. We had Mom's list: turkey, ham, veggies, baking supplies. Jake turned it into a game. "Bet I can find the yams faster than you." He dashed off. I pushed the cart, grabbing milk, eggs, bread. In the produce section, I ran into Megan, an old high school crush. "Alex? Wow, it's been ages." She was with her husband and twins, looking happy. We chatted, her job in marketing, my design work. "You should come to our New Year's party," she said. Awkward, but nice. Jake reappeared with arms full, yams, candy canes, energy drinks. Essentials, bro. Checkout took forever, lines snaking. Back home, we unloaded bags as Emily and Mom baked cookies. The kitchen was a flour-dusted battlefield, bowls everywhere, oven beeping. Emily was instructing. "Mom, use parchment paper to prevent sticking and measure precisely, no eyeballing." Mom chuckled. "Yes, dear, but sometimes a pinch of love is the secret ingredient." Afternoon brought tree decorating. Boxes from the attic held treasures, ornaments from vacations, handmade by us kids, fragile heirlooms. Emily hung hers high, color-coordinated. Jake added quirky ones, like a pickle, German tradition for luck. Dad and I wrapped lights, his solar system glowing. Mom directed, sipping cocoa. Perfect, just perfect. But hints of chaos loomed. Jake's music blasted, annoying Emily on a call. "Turn it down, some of us work." Mom mediated. "Let's all take a break." We did, with hot chocolate topped with marshmallows. Stories flowed. Dad's first job, Mom's teaching tales, Emily's law school grind, Jake's band dreams, my art school days. It was warm, connective. Then Aunt Carol called. "I'm coming with Frank and the kids. See you tomorrow." Mom excited, us less so. Aunt Carol, 62, is Mom's dramatic sister, always with new diets, boyfriends, causes. Frank, her latest, is 60, entrepreneur, unemployed, perhaps. Kids, Tyler and Mia, teens full of attitude. The house would be full and tense. Evening was wrap gifts. We set up in the living room, paper rolls, ribbons. Emily wrapped neatly, Jake sloppily. I did okay. Laughter over ugly paper choices. Dinner was leftovers, casual. Bed early, anticipating tomorrow. December 22nd dawned sunny but cold. Aunt Carol's SUV arrived at 10 a.m., horn honking. She burst in, hugging everyone. "Darlings, the drive was hell. Traffic, snow." Frank followed, mustache twitching, shaking hands. "Nice to meet you." Tyler and Mia slouched in, phones out. "Hi," they mumbled. Mom assigned rooms. Aunt Carol and Frank and guest, kids in the basement with Jake. He grumbled. Great, roommates. The day was prep. Aunt Carol invaded the kitchen, pushing superfoods. "Linda, try my kale smoothie recipe." Mom obliged politely. Frank and Dad bonded over tools, but Frank critiqued. "Your wiring's off, Bob. Let me show you." Dad tensed. Teens complained. "No signal down here." Jake tried bonding. "Want to hear my music?" Tyler scoffed. Lame. I ran errands for wine. Roads slick. Back, Emily and Aunt Carol debated news. "That's fake," Emily said. Mom diffused with lunch.
Afternoon, Dad tested sled. Alex, join me. We hiked the hill, snow deep. He slid first, fun until lights sparked. He crashed. Oof, scraped arm. Mom freaked. Robert! Bandaged, she scolded. Emily eye-rolled. Act your age. Jake's music blared, more glares. Evening, takeout pizza. Tense. Dad defended sled. Prototype. Conversation strained. December 23rd, storm brewing. More baking, cleaning. Aunt Carol led yoga. Awkward poses, grunts. Power flickered. Mom twisted ankle, slipping. I'm fine. Emily took over cooking. Chop faster. Frank offered grill, but snowed in. Evening, church. Beautiful service. Back for feast. Table set, toast given. Food delicious. Then power out. Generator failed initially, then surged, burning pies. Basement crash, wine spill. Generator died again. Huddled by the fire, stories shared. Christmas morning, power back. Gifts opened. But letter found, family secret revealed. Argument ensued. Resolution came slowly. This nearly covers the events, but the video requires a length of 4,000 words. I can expand each section with more descriptive details. The airport could include details of passengers, announcements, and my thoughts about Sarah's Instagram posts from Bali. As I drove with Dad, I could elaborate on our conversation about his health, my job, family updates. Upon arrival, I could describe the house interior in greater detail, the furniture, photos, smells. The dinner scene could be grown out with more dialogue and specific stories told. I could add more deep talks and memories to the basement hangout. The shopping trip could include more incidents in the store, like a spilled cart or long line chat. I could describe the story behind each ornament when we were decorating. The conversation with Aunt Carol could be fleshed out, and the arrival could include detailed descriptions of everyone and their interactions. Similarly, the sled incident could be detailed step by step to ensure the video meets the length requirement. If you want me to elaborate on any specific scene, just let me know. I'll start expanding the events now. The scene at the airport can be expanded as follows. It was cold in Seattle, and I was staring at my half-packed suitcase like it was a portal to another dimension, one filled with family drama, forced cheer, and way too much eggnog. The date was December 20th, 2024, and I was gearing up for the annual pilgrimage back to Chicago for Christmas. My apartment, a cozy one-bedroom in Capitol Hill, was decked minimally, a small fake tree with a few lights, mostly to make Zoom calls look festive. But my mind was elsewhere, replaying the breakup with Sarah for 100th time. She'd left 2 months ago, saying she needed to explore the world and find my true self. Last I checked her Instagram, yes, I was that guy. She was posing on a beach in Bali with some tanned surfer. Living my best life, the caption read. Great for her, lousy for me. I tossed in a sweater, some socks, and the gifts I'd bought online to avoid malls. A handmade scarf for Mom from a local artisan, a set of precision tools for Dad's garage antics, vintage vinyl records for Jake's collection, and a leather-bound planner for Emily to organize her chaotic life. My family is the type that looks perfect in photos, but feels like a sitcom behind the scenes. Dad, Robert, is 68 and retired from his engineering job at an auto parts manufacturer. He's tall, with a salt and pepper beard, and always in flannel shirts stained with oil from his projects. His latest obsession was renewable energy gadgets. He'd been rambling about solar-powered everything in our weekly calls. Mom, Linda, is 65, short and bubbly, with curly gray hair and a wardrobe of holiday-themed sweaters. She was an elementary school teacher for 35 years and now volunteers at the community center, organizing book drives and soup kitchens. She's the heart of the family, the one who remembers birthdays and sends care packages. Emily, 35, is the overachiever, a partner at a big law firm in Manhattan. She's slim, always in tailored suits, with sharp features and a no-nonsense attitude that intimidates most people. Her divorce from Mark had been finalized in November, and she'd been venting to me about how he stole her best years. Jake, 22, is the free spirit, living in the basement while pursuing music. He's got tattoos, piercings, and a guitar that's practically an extension of his arm. His band has potential, but motivation? Not so much. This year had been rough for all of us. Dad's heart episode in April had us all scared. He had chest pains during a walk and ended up in the ER with a blocked artery. Mom called me at 2 a.m. sobbing, and I booked the first flight out. Emily took leave from work to help, and Jake even paused his gaming marathons to visit the hospital. Then, Emily's marriage imploded when she found Mark's texts to his assistant. She handled the legal side like a boss, but emotionally, she was a wreck. Jake flunked out of his online classes, claiming they were soul-crushing. And me, losing Sarah felt like losing a part of myself. We'd planned to spend the holidays together, maybe even get engaged. Instead, I was flying solo. Mom's enthusiasm was the only thing pulling me through.
Mom herded us to the kitchen, a bright space with oak cabinets, granite counters, and herbs on the windowsill. Soup simmered on the stove, vegetable beef, my favorite. We sat at the island, munching crackers while she stirred. Dinner's in an hour, lasagna. Dad grabbed beers from the fridge. To the holidays, clinks all around. Conversations started light, weather, travel woes. Emily shared a work anecdote about a client who insisted on a contract clause for astrological alignment. I told him, "Sir, the law doesn't care about your horoscope." Laughter. Jake talked band. "We wrote a new song, Frozen Hearts. It's about breakup winter blues." Directed at me with a sympathetic pat. I opened up a bit. "Sarah's in Bali. Looks happy." Mom squeezed my hand. "Her loss, sweetie." Dinner was served in the dining room, tables set with cloth napkins and candles, lasagna gooey, salad crisp, bread warm. We ate, stories flowing. Dad recalled his first Christmas with Mom, 1975, when he proposed with a ring in a snow globe. "She said yes before it even melted." Mom blushed. Emily talked divorce. "Mark's paying alimony, serves him right." Jake joked about his rock star life, earning eye rolls. I shared a funny client story about a logo that looked like a phallus by accident. Post-dinner, cleanup was team effort. Emily rinsed, I loaded dishwasher, Jake dried, Mom stored leftovers. Dad wiped table. Then basement time, Jake's lair, dim lights, band posters, Nirvana, Arctic Monkeys, couch with blankets, TV mounted. We watched Die Hard. Holiday classic? Snacking on cookies. Deep talk ensued. Emily admitted, "Divorce makes me question everything. Am I too career-focused?" I confessed, "Sarah said I was boring. Am I?" Jake said, "We're all messed up, but that's family." Bed at midnight, guest room cozy with quilts. Sleep came easy, lulled by house creaks. December 21st. Up at 8. Coffee aroma, Mom in kitchen, bacon sizzling. "Grocery run today, list ready." Dad outside, ladder up, adding lights. "Help, Alex?" I did, passing bulbs, chatting health. "Doctor says I'm good, exercise, diet." Good to hear. Jake and I to store. Lot full, cart scarce. Inside, chaos. Crowded aisles, sample ladies pushing pies, PA announcing sales. List. Produce, meats, dairy. Jake raced for cranberries. I got veggies. Bumped cart into old neighbor, Mrs. Johnson. "Alex, how's life?" Chat about her grandkids. Jake returned with extras, chips, soda, for movie night. Line took 30 minutes, cashier chatting holidays. Home, unloaded. Emily and Mom baking, dough rolling, cutters out. "Sugar cookies," Emily directed. "Even spacing for baking." Mom smiled. "Yes, boss." Afternoon, decorating. Ornaments unpacked, glass balls from Europe trip 1995, when Emily got lost in Rome. Clay ones I made in school, lopsided. Jake's rock-themed. Light strung, tinsel draped. Dad's app synced to music. Tree pulsed to Silent Night. Mom teary. Beautiful. Break for cocoa, marshmallows floating.
Stories, Dad's army days, Mom's teaching, funny kids, Emily's court wins, Jake's gig fails, my design bloopers. Aunt Carol call. Linda, we're coming. Me, Frank, Tyler, Mia. Arrive tomorrow. Mom thrilled. Wonderful. Us, wary. Aunt Carol, dramatic, with new beau, Frank, teens. Evening, gift wrapping, paper, bows. Emily, pro, Jake, creative mess. Dinner, sandwiches, relaxed. December 22nd. Aunt Carol arrives. SUV honks, she hugs. Traffic hell. Frank, burly, handshakes. Teens, sullen. Rooms assigned, kitchen takeover by Aunt Carol. Try my quinoa. Frank critiques lights. Teens complain Wi-Fi. Sled test, Dad slides, sparks, crashes. Mom bandages, scolds, tension. Dinner, pizza, strained. December 23rd. Storm, prep, yoga, ankle twist, power flicker. Church, feast, power out, generator issues, spills, huddles. Morning, gifts, letter found, secret out, argument, resolution. The next morning, December 22nd, I woke up to the sound of a car horn blaring outside like someone was laying on it for fun. It was 10:15 a.m., later than I'd slept in months, and the house smelled of fresh coffee mixed with something sharper, Aunt Carol's signature essential oil diffuser that she insisted cleansed the energy. I groaned, pulled on jeans and a hoodie, and shuffled downstairs. Mom was already in full hostess mode, apron on, greeting the arrivals at the door like it was a red carpet event. Aunt Carol swept in first, arms wide, wearing a flowing purple caftan that looked like it belonged at a music festival, not a suburban Chicago Christmas. "Linda, darling sister, look at this house. It's like a winter fairy tale." She air-kissed Mom on both cheeks, leaving little clouds of patchouli in her wake. Behind her lumbered Frank, her boyfriend of the past year, a big guy in his early 60s with a thick gray mustache, a flannel shirt tucked into jeans, and a belt buckle the size of a dinner plate. He carried 2 massive suitcases like they weighed nothing. "Nice place you got here, Bob," he boomed, shaking Dad's hand hard enough for Dad to wince. Dad forced a smile. "Welcome, Frank. Let me help with those bags." Then came the teens, Tyler, 16, and Mia, 14, slouching in like they'd been dragged here against their will, which they probably had. Tyler had earbuds in, hood up, scrolling on his phone without looking where he was going. Mia was chewing gum loudly, pink streaks in her hair, taking selfies in the doorway with the snow as the backdrop. Neither said hello. Mom, ever the optimist, beamed at them. "Tyler, Mia, you've grown so much. Come in, there's hot chocolate on the stove." Emily appeared from the living room, arms crossed, watching the invasion with the expression of someone calculating how many hours until escape. She caught my eye and mouthed, "Kill me." I stifled a laugh and went to help with luggage. Mom had already assigned rooms like a hotel concierge. Aunt Carol and Frank got the guest room I'd used last night. I'd been bumped to an air mattress in the office. Tyler and Mia were banished to the basement with Jake. When Mom announced that, Jake, who'd just emerged bleary-eyed in his pajamas, let out an audible groan. "Seriously? I finally get the basement to myself, and now I've got roommates." Aunt Carol patted his cheek. "It'll be good for you, Jacob. Build character, sharing space with the younger generation." Jake muttered something about character limits and trudged back downstairs to prepare. The house immediately felt smaller. 11 people under one roof, most of us with baggage, literal and emotional. Frank dumped the suitcases in the hallway and immediately gravitated toward Dad's garage. "Heard you're an engineer, Bob. Mind if I take a peek at your setup? I did some electrical work back in the day, installed whole house systems for a living." Dad, who hates anyone touching his tools, hesitated but said, "Sure, come on out." I could already sense the territorial pissing contest brewing. Aunt Carol, meanwhile, made a beeline for the kitchen. "Linda, sweetie, I brought some healthy alternatives for the feast. We're doing clean eating this year. No gluten, no dairy, low sugar. I have quinoa, kale chips, and my famous turmeric ginger shots." She started unloading reusable bags onto the counter, jars of weird powders, bundles of greens, bottles of kombucha.
Mom, who'd spent days planning a traditional menu with buttery rolls and creamy pies, smiled tightly. "That's thoughtful, Carol. We can incorporate some of it." Emily, pouring herself coffee, whispered to me, "If she touches the pecan pie recipe, I'm filing a restraining order." The teens disappeared downstairs almost immediately. We heard muffled complaints through the floorboards. "This Wi-Fi sucks. Why is it so cold down here?" And Jake's sarcastic, "Welcome to the dungeon, cousins." Mom sent me down with a tray of hot chocolate and cookies as a peace offering. The basement was dim, lit by string lights and Jake's gaming setup. Tyler was already sprawled on the futon, phone in hand, while Mia sat cross-legged on an air mattress, filming a TikTok. Jake was tuning his guitar, trying to look unbothered. "Hey guys," I said, setting the tray down. "Mom made these fresh." Mia glanced up long enough to grab a cookie. Tyler grunted thanks without looking away from his screen. Jake rolled his eyes at me. "This is going to be a long week, bro." Back upstairs, the adults were settling into their roles. Aunt Carol had taken over half the kitchen counter with her superfoods, rearranging Mom's spice rack for better energy flow. Frank and Dad returned from the garage, Frank talking loudly about how Dad's wiring could be optimized with heavier gauge cable. Dad's jaw was tight, but he nodded along. "Interesting idea, Frank. I'll think about it." Translation, "Over my dead body." Lunch was a hodgepodge. Mom's leftover lasagna reheated alongside Aunt Carol's quinoa salad with cranberries and almonds. We squeezed around the dining table, elbows bumping. Conversation was strained. Aunt Carol dominated, talking about her latest spiritual awakening retreat in Sedona. "The vortex energy there is life-changing. Frank and I meditated at sunrise every day." Frank nodded enthusiastically, felt 10 years younger. Emily, fork paused mid-air, asked dryly, "Did the vortex help with your cryptocurrency investments?" Frank chuckled awkwardly. "Well, not yet, but manifestation takes time."
Mom banned him from the garage for the rest of the day. No more tinkering until a doctor looks at that wrist. Dinner that night was takeout pizza because no one felt like cooking. We ate in the living room, boxes on coffee tables, TV on low with some holiday movie no one watched. Conversation was muted. Emily worked on her laptop, claiming urgent emails. Jake and the teens retreated downstairs early. Aunt Carol tried leading a gratitude circle, but only Mom and Frank participated enthusiastically. I sat with Dad on the porch later, sharing a quiet beer under the stars. Snow crunched softly as plows went by in the distance. "Holidays, huh?" he said, flexing his bandaged wrist gingerly. "Always something." I nodded. "Yeah, but we're all here. That counts." He clapped my shoulder with his good hand. "Damn right, son." Little did we know, the real chaos hadn't even started. The storm rolling in overnight was going to make Dad's sled crash look like a minor fender bender. December 23rd started with promise. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the frosted office window, the kind of bright, crisp winter light that bounces off fresh snow and makes everything look clean and hopeful. For a split second, I forgot about the crowded house, Dad's injured wrist, and the general undercurrent of tension. Then I heard Aunt Carol's voice drifting up from the kitchen, loud and enthusiastic. "Let's start the day with some gentle flow yoga. It'll align our chakras for the holiday energy." I groaned into my pillow. It was going to be one of those days. By the time I made it downstairs, the living room had been transformed into an impromptu yoga studio. Mom had pushed the coffee table aside and rolled out every spare mat, towel, and blanket we owned. Aunt Carol stood at the front in neon leggings and a tank top that read, "Namaste in Nature," leading the group with sweeping arm gestures. Mom was trying valiantly to follow along, her face red from effort and embarrassment. Dad sat on the couch with his bandaged wrist elevated, pretending to read the newspaper, but clearly amused. Jake was in downward dog, grunting like he was lifting weights. Emily, in borrowed sweats, looked like she was plotting murder with every forced breath. Jake and the teens had been dragged up from the basement. Mia was half-heartedly mirroring poses while filming on her phone.
Tyler was flat on his back, resting in corpse pose 5 minutes in, and Jake kept muttering, "This is not metal," under his breath. I slipped in quietly and took a spot in the back. Aunt Carol spotted me and beamed. "Alex, wonderful! Join us for sun salutations." I spent the next 40 minutes bending, stretching, and trying not to laugh as Frank's knees cracked like gunfire and Emily's competitive side emerged. She had to hold every pose longer than anyone else. By the end, we were all sweaty and awkwardly relaxed. Aunt Carol closed with, "Feel that holiday zen flowing through you?" Mom, ever gracious, said, "That was invigorating, Carol. Thank you." The rest of us mumbled agreement and bolted for coffee. Breakfast was a negotiation. Mom wanted her traditional cinnamon French toast. Aunt Carol insisted on adding her superfood boost, chia seeds, flax, and a green powder that turned everything grayish. We compromised. Half the batch normal, half enhanced. Dad, one-handed, managed to flip slices while sipping coffee. The teens ate the normal ones and disappeared again. Jake stuck around long enough to inhale 6 pieces and announce he was heading downstairs to recover from the trauma. The big plan for the day was final feast prep and church in the evening, followed by the Christmas Eve dinner. Mom's menu was classic: roasted turkey with herb butter, honey-glazed ham, mashed potatoes with gravy, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, dinner rolls, and a spread of pies, pecan, pumpkin, and apple. Aunt Carol had her healthy sides ready to go: roasted Brussels sprouts with balsamic, a kale and pomegranate salad, and some kind of vegan cauliflower mash. The kitchen became a war zone of overlapping timers, clanging pots, and passive-aggressive comments about counter space. I was assigned potato peeling duty. Sitting at the island with a bowl between my knees, I peeled while Mom bustled around stuffing the turkey. Emily chopped onions and celery for the dressing, tears streaming but refusing tissues because lawyers don't cry. Dad, banned from heavy lifting, was put on supervisory role, meaning he sat nearby offering unsolicited advice. "Linda, don't forget the garlic in the butter rub, and baste every 30 minutes. Mom smiled through gritted teeth. "Yes, dear." Frank wandered in and out, offering to man the grill for the ham, even though it was going in the oven and there was a foot of snow outside. Aunt Carol kept rearranging things for better feng shui. At one point, she moved the salt shaker and declared this corner was blocking abundance. Emily muttered, "The only thing blocked is my patience." Around noon, the weather started turning. The forecast had warned of a major snowstorm moving in from the west, but we'd all been in denial. Flurries began outside the kitchen window, pretty at first, then thicker and faster. The wind picked up, rattling the old panes. Dad checked his phone. "They're saying 8 to 12 inches tonight, maybe more. Power outages possible." Mom waved it off. "We've got the generator, and church is only a few miles away. We'll be fine." That's when the first real mishap happened. Mom, reaching for a baster on a high shelf, stepped onto a stool that was sitting on a wet spot from melted snow tracked in earlier. Her foot slipped. She windmilled her arms, grabbed the counter, but came down hard on her right ankle with a sharp cry. The kitchen froze. "Linda!" Dad was up instantly, forgetting his own injury. I dropped the peeler and rushed over. Mom was on the floor, face pale, holding her ankle. I'm okay, just twisted it." But when she tried to stand, she gasped and sat back down. Ice pack, elevation, Advil. Emily took charge like it was a deposition. "No weight on it, Mom. We need to wrap it." Aunt Carol produced an essential oil blend for swelling and pain. Mom accepted it politely, but winced when it stung. Dad looked guilty. "I should have mopped up that water." Frank offered to carry her to the couch, but Mom insisted on hobbling with help from me and Emily. With Mom sidelined, Emily declared herself head chef. "Everyone else follow my instructions. No freelancing." She tied Mom's apron around her own waist and started barking orders like Gordon Ramsay with a law degree. "Alex, finish those potatoes and get them boiling. Jake, yes you, get up here and set the table properly. Napkins folded, silverware aligned. Frank, if you're grilling anything, do it now before the snow gets worse." Jake appeared, protesting, but one glare from Emily shut him up. The kitchen turned into a chaotic assembly line. I mashed potatoes with butter and cream, while Emily basted the turkey and ham. Aunt Carol chopped vegetables for her sides, humming mantras. Dad sat with Mom in the living room, keeping her company and sneaking her bites of cookie dough. The teens were recruited to fold napkins into fancy shapes they learned from YouTube. Mia actually got into it, Tyler less so. And Jake kept muttering, "This is not metal," under his breath. I slipped in quietly and took a spot in the back. Aunt Carol spotted me and beamed. "Alex, wonderful! Join us for sun salutations." I spent the next 40 minutes bending, stretching, and trying not to laugh as Frank's knees cracked like gunfire and Emily's competitive side emerged. She had to hold every pose longer than anyone else. By the end, we were all sweaty and awkwardly relaxed. Aunt Carol closed with, "Feel that holiday zen flowing through you?" Mom, ever gracious, said, "That was invigorating, Carol. Thank you." The rest of us mumbled agreement and bolted for coffee. Breakfast was a negotiation. Mom wanted her traditional cinnamon French toast. Aunt Carol insisted on adding her superfood boost, chia seeds, flax, and a green powder that turned everything grayish. We compromised. Half the batch normal, half enhanced. Dad, one-handed, managed to flip slices while sipping coffee. The teens ate the normal ones and disappeared again. Jake stuck around long enough to inhale 6 pieces and announce he was heading downstairs to recover from the trauma. The big plan for the day was final feast prep and church in the evening, followed by the Christmas Eve dinner. Mom's menu was classic: roasted turkey with herb butter, honey-glazed ham, mashed potatoes with gravy, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, dinner rolls, and a spread of pies, pecan, pumpkin, and apple. Aunt Carol had her healthy sides ready to go: roasted Brussels sprouts with balsamic, a kale and pomegranate salad, and some kind of vegan cauliflower mash. The kitchen became a war zone of overlapping timers, clanging pots, and passive-aggressive comments about counter space. I was assigned potato peeling duty. Sitting at the island with a bowl between my knees, I peeled while Mom bustled around stuffing the turkey. Emily chopped onions and celery for the dressing, tears streaming but refusing tissues because lawyers don't cry. Dad, banned from heavy lifting, was put on supervisory role, meaning he sat nearby offering unsolicited advice. "Linda, don't forget the garlic and the butter rub, and baste every 30 minutes. Mom smiled through gritted teeth. "Yes, dear." Frank wandered in and out, offering to man the grill for the ham, even though it was going in the oven and there was a foot of snow outside. Aunt Carol kept rearranging things for better feng shui. At one point, she moved the salt shaker and declared this corner was blocking abundance. Emily muttered, "The only thing blocked is my..."
Christmas morning, December 25th, 2024, arrived quietly. Sometime in the early hours, the power had hummed back to life, lights flickered on automatically, the furnace kicked in with a comforting rumble, and the fridge started its familiar hum. I woke up on the living room floor, tangled in blankets, with Jake's foot in my face and Mia snoring softly on the couch above me. The fire had burned down to embers, but the house was warm again. For a moment, everything felt peaceful, like the storm and the blackout had been a weird dream. Then I smelled coffee. Mom was already up, hobbling around the kitchen on her wrapped ankle with a crutch Dad must have dug out of the attic. She was humming Joy to the World off-key, starting pancake batter, despite strict orders from Emily to rest. Dad sat at the island, nursing his wrist, watching her with a mix of worry and affection. "Linda, sit down. I can flip pancakes one-handed." Mom waved him off. "It's Christmas. I'm not missing this." One by one, everyone surfaced. Aunt Carol emerged in a red velvet robe, declaring the blackout had been a powerful lesson in unplugging from the Matrix. Frank shuffled in behind her, scratching his belly and asking where the bacon was. Emily appeared looking surprisingly refreshed, hair in a messy bun, already queuing up a holiday playlist on the smart speaker. The teens stumbled up last, eyes bleary, phones miraculously charged enough to check notifications. Jake groaned dramatically. I dreamed we were still singing Kumbaya by candlelight. Please tell me that wasn't real. We ate breakfast in waves. Pancakes stacked high, bacon crispy, fresh fruit, orange juice flowing. The scorched pies from last night had been salvaged into a trifle layered with whipped cream, and nobody complained. Laughter came easier in daylight. Dad recounted his sled crash for the teens, who now thought it was legendary. Tyler even asked if he could try the fixed version later. Frank offered to help rewire it. Dad, to everyone's shock, said yes. After breakfast, we migrated to the living room for gifts. The tree lights twinkled steadily now that power was back, presents piled underneath in a colorful mess. Mom insisted on playing Santa, handing out packages from her perch on the recliner with her foot elevated. We went one at a time, oohing and eyeing like when we were kids. Jake got a new effects pedal from me and a check from Mom and Dad toward a better amp. He immediately plugged it into his portable rig and played a riff that shook the windows. Emily unwrapped a spa weekend voucher I'd booked for her in New York. Her eyes actually missed it up. "You jerk," she said, hugging me. "I needed this." From Mom, she got a beautiful necklace with all our birthstones. Dad received a custom tool organizer for the garage, his eyes lit up like a kid's, and a smartwatch to track his heart rate. "Doctor's orders," Mom said firmly. Aunt Carol and Frank exchanged practical gifts, hiking boots for him, a crystal healing set for her. The teens scored gift cards, new headphones, and clothes they'd dropped heavy hints about. Mia squealed over a ring light for her TikToks. Tyler quietly thanked everyone for a new gaming controller. Even Frank teared up a little when Mia gave him a handmade keychain. My haul was solid. A leather jacket from Emily, you dress like a college student, noise-canceling headphones from Jake, a framed photo collage of the family from Mom and Dad. Underneath it all was a small envelope with a note from Mom, for a weekend getaway, whenever you're ready to start fresh. Inside was a voucher for a cabin in the Wisconsin Dells. I swallowed hard. They knew how much the breakup had wrecked me. We were halfway through cleanup, wrapping paper everywhere, boxes stacked, when Jake called up from the basement. Guys, you might want to see this." His voice had that tone, part curious, part, oh shit. We trooped downstairs. The collapsed shelf from last night had been partially cleared, but old storage bins were still spilled across the floor. Jake held up a yellowed envelope addressed to Mom in handwriting I recognized as Grandma's, elegant cursive, gone since she passed 10 years ago. It was in this box of old letters. I wasn't snooping, I swear, just trying to organize. Mom's face went pale as she took it. "That's private, Jake." But Emily, ever the lawyer, was already reaching. "Mom, what is it?" Mom hesitated, then handed it over with a sigh. Emily opened it carefully. The paper crackled. She read silently at first, lips moving, then out loud in a stunned voice. It was a letter from Grandma to Mom, dated almost 30 years ago. In it, Grandma expressed worry about Robert's mistake and urged Mom to tell the children when they're old enough so there are no secrets eating at the family. She referenced a brief affair Dad had early in the marriage, before any of us kids were born or we were too young to remember. Grandma had found out somehow and was advising forgiveness, but also transparency. "He loves you, Linda, but lies grow in the dark." The basement went dead silent. You could hear the furnace clicking upstairs. Dad stood frozen at the foot of the stairs, face ashen. Mom closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. Emily looked between them, voice sharp. "Is this true? Dad, you had an affair?" Jake's mouth hung open. The teens shifted awkwardly, sensing adult landmines. Aunt Carol, of all people, murmured, "Oh, honey." Dad finally spoke, voice rough. "Yes, it's true." He sank onto a beanbag chair like his legs gave out. "It was 1993. I was traveling a lot for work. Stupid, drunk night on a business trip. One time. I told your mother a month later. We went to counseling. We fixed it. We thought it was buried, for you kids." Mom nodded, eyes still closed.
We decided it was our burden, not yours. You were so little. And after therapy, after years, it felt healed. I forgave him. We built a stronger marriage." Emily's lawyer mode kicked in hard. "You kept this from us our whole lives? All the lectures about honesty, trust, while hiding something this big?" Her voice cracked at the end. Jake looked betrayed. "So those fights I remember as a kid, the whispering, that was about this?" I just stood there, brain reeling, memories reshuffling. Tense dinners, Dad sleeping on the couch a few times, Mom crying in the laundry room, pieces clicking into place. Aunt Carol, surprisingly, stepped forward. "I knew Linda. Mom told me back then. I thought you should tell them too, but it wasn't my place." That earned her a sharp look from Mom. Frank cleared his cough. "Folks, maybe we take this upstairs. Give everyone space." But no one moved. Emily stormed up first, muttering needing air. Jake followed, guitar case banging the wall. The teens slunk after them, wide-eyed. This was better than any reality show. Upstairs, the beautiful Christmas morning fractured. Emily paced the living room, phone in hand like she wanted to call someone but had no one. Jake disappeared to the porch, strumming angry chords. I helped Mom to the couch, Dad trailing behind, looking 20 years older. The argument unfolded in waves. Emily demanded details, when, who, how long. Dad gave short, painful answers. One night, a coworker, never again. Mom defended quietly. We chose each other every day after. Therapy, church, hard work. Our marriage is stronger because we faced it. Emily shot back. "But you lied to us by omission. How can we trust anything now?" Her voice cracked at the end. Jake looked betrayed. "So those fights I remember as a kid, the whispering, that was about this?" I finally spoke. "I get why you didn't tell us when we were kids, but we're adults now. We've all made mistakes this year. Breakups, dropouts, health scares. We could have handled this." Mom started crying softly. Dad's eyes were red. "We were ashamed and afraid you'd look at me differently." Hours passed like that. Tears, raised voices, long silences. Aunt Carol tried her breathing exercises again. This time, a few of us joined half-heartedly. Frank made sandwiches nobody ate. The teens played cards in the kitchen, giving us space but stealing glances. Slowly, painfully, the tide turned. Emily sat down first, exhaustion winning over anger. "I'm not saying it's okay you hid it, but I get choosing to protect your marriage. I just watched mine fall apart because we didn't fight hard enough." Jake came in cold-cheeked. "I feel like an idiot. All those times I thought you guys were perfect." His voice broke. Dad reached for him, but Jake pulled away. I finally spoke. "I get why you didn't tell us when we were kids, but we're adults now. We've all made mistakes this year. Breakups, dropouts, health scares. We could have handled this." Mom started crying softly. Dad's eyes were red. "We were ashamed and afraid you'd look at me differently." By late afternoon, the house felt different, lighter somehow. We reheated leftovers for dinner, no fancy table, just plates on laps in the living room. Conversation was real. Memories, regrets, hopes. Dad told stories from early marriage I'd never heard. Mom admitted her own doubts back then. We laughed through tears when Jake played a ridiculous blues riff titled Dad's Secret Boogie. Snow stopped falling outside, sky clearing to reveal stars. Dad and Frank got the sled lights rewired properly. The teens took runs down the hill, screaming with joy. Emily joined them, letting go for once. I watched from the porch with Mom, her ankle propped beside me. "Best, worst Christmas ever?" I asked. She smiled, squeezing my hand. "The real ones always are." Looking back now, that chaotic, messy, heartbreaking, healing holiday was exactly